Okay, so now let's tackle something like the fridge. Now, you can see I used portrait mode, depth of field, so I focused on this part so that all of this would be blurry. That makes a really cool effect, and it makes it really fun to be able to incorporate that into your art. And to keep it simple, I'm just going to use shapes for this portion. I mean, we're gonna draw the shapes, but you understand. Okay, so I'm going to make a new layer. So now we have our background and we have a blank open layer. The first thing we want to do is figure out a color, so I think a nice green will work. This green looks pretty good. And we'll use Butterblade. Okay. So the first idea I had was to kind of have something like it's sitting on this shelf. But we don't have that much room on the bottom. I should have probably took it vertically, then I could have made something like sitting with like leg type things coming off. But for now we'll just use this space in here. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a circle, sort of make it look like something is sitting on the shelf. That looks pretty good. I'm going to just clean it up a little bit by using the hold. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to just give it some height. Okay, so every now and again I like to make sure that I'm on the right layer, my new layer. Okay, I'm just going to move this back a little bit. That way it's not on the very edge of the. There we go. That's better. I want to see this edge here. And you can feel free to sculpt the shape to make it as you like it. I kind of like. Yeah, there we go. I just wanted to make it a little rounder, a little more sleek. Okay, so now I'm also just going to make another little plop on top. You know what? I'll use Butterblade. I'll just do it the old-fashioned way. There we go. I'm going to make the whole thing a little bit smaller. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger and move it up a little bit. There we go. So just an interesting shape. But the lighting around and the things around it is what really can make this simple shape interesting. So the first thing that we'll do is add a shadow. So the light is here, so the shadow is going to be here and down here and around here. So we'll go to our green color and then we'll just make it darker. And we could do this on a different layer, but I think for the sake of simplicity we'll just do it right on this layer here. So we'll alpha lock that. We'll take our airbrush. There we go. Okay. And then you slowly just want to shade in the areas that should be shaded. So if the light is coming here, then all of this back here should be darker. And never press very hard on your iPad. just keep going over it, and it's only going to get as dark as how dark we've made it. So if you need it darker, just make it darker here. I'll make my brush bigger because I want a nice gradient. I don't ever want to see the separation of light to dark. I want it to be a gradient. Okay, that looks pretty good. And now I'm going to make it a little bit darker and really hit that edge, the places, the bits furthest away from the light. Just make those a little darker. And I'll do the same thing with this up here. Maybe even a little tad darker. Make the brush a little bigger and then go really light, just so it's a nice gradient. Okay. I think that looks pretty good so far. Okay, so now the next thing that we're going to do is add a little bit of that 3D flavor to these shapes. So the way I'm going to do that is go to the original green and make it a little bit lighter, and I'm actually going to make it a little bit more yellow. And the only reason I'm doing that is because this is here, and I sort of want to bring in a little bit of these colors into our shape. Same brush. I'll make it a little bit smaller. And now I'm going to lightly just give that edge a little kiss of that light color. Make it a little smaller even. You don't want to cover all of your shadow. Here we go. Okay, that's looking pretty good. And we'll do the same thing up here. Make it big so you can see. Just adding a little light touch of a light edge. Make it a little smaller. There's always lights and refraction and things in in a space, and this little trick will really make things look 3D. And the reason why it looks 3D is because when our eyes see things, we may not perceive this light edge on certain things, but that's just what makes it, that's kind of one of those tricks that just makes it look really good and really believable. A little bit more here. Okay. Add a little bit more to this guy. And it's really important to just practice your shading. And just go slow. Don't try to rush. Don't try to rush it. Okay, that's looking pretty good so far. I'm going to take this a little bit darker green, and I'm just going to softly just add a little bit over here. Okay. Okay, so next we're going to start adding some light. So let's make a new layer above our green shape here. We're going to go to white. I'm going to go back to regular graffiti brush at 100%. And I'm going to make the layer 15%. That way I don't have to worry about it getting lighter and lighter if I go back over the same line. So new layer, layer is 15%, graffiti brush, white, 15%. I might have repeated something there. Okay, so let's make our nice jelly beans here. And we'll sort of like, I'm going to sort of conform it to the shape. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's make the brush lighter. We'll just make a light one down here. Just to kind of, I don't know if I like that. We'll just leave it here for now. I'm going to carve some of this. Okay, that looks pretty good. And we'll do the same thing up here. Oh, let me bring the opacity back up to 100%. And we'll make a nice jelly bean here. Now another thing we can do is you can also adjust the opacity. I think it actually looks better if it's a little lighter. I think that looks better. Okay, so now for our highlights. So we're on a new layer. Put a nice big pop there. Put one here. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is tie in some of this blue, because the surrounding color will really help this look like it's in the space. Okay, so I've selected that blue. I made it a little bit lighter, and I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to bring that layer opacity down to about 30. We'll just use graffiti brush for now. Bring it up to 50. 50 is good for now. That way you can see what I'm doing. So it sort of looks like it's a square. So I'm going to sort of keep that square shape. And now I'm going to take my eraser. I'm going to just use butter blade. And I'm going to lower the eraser down to 50%. And then I'm just going to make some lines in it. Just some little... just to sort of make it look like it might be reflecting off of this. And I'm just going to lower the opacity on that. And also I'm going to take this color, make it a little bit brighter, and we'll keep it on the same layer. And I'm just going to make going to do that, and then I'll just erase a little bit of there too. I'll erase a little bit here. just to sort of tie in this orange here. And something else we can do is bring up these white. So I'm going to use white, and I'll use Butterblade, and I'll bring the opacity way down to about 30, or maybe about 20. Let's see how that looks. And I'm going to make some white there, make the white there, maybe a little bit for that one. And now I'm going to take my eraser and I'm going to use the airbrush, and I'm going to airbrush the top. That way it looks like these are reflecting off of that. Now the reverse of that, which is also really cool, is I'm going to make a layer underneath our green and on top of our background. Black. I'll use the soft brush and I'll make it really small. I'll lower the opacity to about 50. And I'm going to color over these black, or these white bars. So this is the reverse. This is making it look like there's a shadow from the green thing. Okay, and actually should make some white, another white thing there too. So I'm going to go back up to our layer with the white. That's this layer. And I'm going to go back to, I think we used Butterblade. And I'm just going to make another little white. Line there. And I'll do the same thing and erase the top. I think that looks pretty good. And once you're happy with this, I'm going to go ahead and merge all of these layers. Notice I didn't merge these with the dark shadows. I didn't merge that layer. Just my green. So now I'm going to duplicate it. I hid the one on top because we're working with the one underneath. Hue saturation, layer, and we'll just change the color. Maybe to like a nice turquoise blue color. Okay, so now when we bring this one back, it'll be in front. We're going to take the blue one now off of Alpha Lock. We're going to tap the arrow. We're going to make it smaller. So uniform, make it smaller, and then we're going to move it back. We'll make it a little bit smaller. And we'll move it back in the fridge. Okay, so now what we'll do is go to the adjustments, Gaussian blur, layer, and then blur it. So this way it matches all the things around it. And of course this can be a character, this could be anything you want it to be. But these little tricks, just making sure that the light is hitting things the right way and things like that, that's what really make things look. That's what really sells it. Alright, so let's move on to the next and final photo, the egg. I have no idea what I'm going to do for the egg yet, but we're going to figure out some fun things to do together.